up quite a few sponsors throughout the season. It kind of baffles me at how many you have, because when you started this endeavor, you didn't have a single sponsor.
That's correct.
Who did you connect with first, and how did that lead to the rest of these sponsors that came on board by the end?
Well, that's a good question. When I started this journey to the national championship, or just to get CLUNKER alive, I didn't have any help at all.
Well, I mean, these people didn't even know you existed.
No, not really.
Yeah,
not really. And but the first person that actually started helping me and showing me interest was a gentleman named Max McElrath. And Max McElrath is the father to a world famous current pro motocrosser named Shane McElrath. So many of our viewers will know who Shane is. Well, Max is Shane's father, and I have been friends since the early 70s.
Okay.
Max is slightly older than me, but only by enough that we raced each other in the 70s. But he also helped me rebuild my Elsinores back in the 70s. So
wow.
Between the two of us, we've probably forgotten more about Elsinores than most people ever learn in a lifetime. So Max still has a motorcycle shop in Canton, North Carolina, and I went straight to him, told him what I was thinking about doing. He said, no problem. Any engine work you need done at all, or any help, anything I can do for you at all, you bring that bike to my shop. It's on the house free of charge. So
wow.
That technically means Max was my first sponsor, if you want to call it that. I consider him a dear friend more than I do a sponsor, and he did it out of the courtesy of his heart. But listen, Max played a huge role in my success.
On your poster there, you have one really big sponsor in the top left corner. It's Butch's Vintage Cycle Shop. How did you come in contact with Butch?
Well, Butch and I had met earlier at JJ's, which is also a sponsor, but Butch's talents for me was a lot like Max. Butch has worked on Elsinores forever. Butch has a shop at his place where he can bore cylinders and do transmission parts. He can do anything internal in a engine on a CR250 or CR125. So between him and Max, just having those two on my team was a huge advantage. Where Butch differs from Max is that Butch actually comes to the track, works with me in person at the track, dialing the motors. If I blow an engine up, I send it over to Butch. He bores the cylinders. He sends the parts back to me. I take it over to Max. Max makes sure everything is mic'd out properly and all the clearances are good. And then I personally do all the mechanic work. So between Butch and Max, you just couldn't have two better sponsors for keeping the engine in check.
Who else came into your life during the season?
Well, Amsoil came in through a guy named Russell Waters out of Waynesville, North Carolina. He's my main Amsoil distributor. And Russell has done nothing but fantastic things for me and CLUNKER, more CLUNKER than me. He provides all the oils, lubricants, anything that keeps CLUNKER slick inside. He makes sure I need for nothing. My two-stroke oil comes from Amsoil. My gear oil comes from Amsoil. And Amsoil was real quick to make sure I had decals for the bike, decals for posters, decals for banners, jerseys. Russell has just done a fantastic job keeping me with all of Amsoil's products and keeping me with the gear I need to represent them. So huge thank you to Russell Waters of Amsoil, major sponsor.
Anyone else?
Steve Litz of Litz Racing. I called my friend Steve up because he'd been helping Ryder's entire 14 years of racing motorcycles, because Steve is a suspension expert. And so when I told Steve, hey, I've got a 1974 CR125, do you think you could help with the suspension on it? Do you even remember those bikes? And he was like, heck yeah, it's a Honda. I love it. And so when he said that, he says, bring your suspension to me. Let me see what I can do with it. And next thing you know, Steve's on board doing all my suspension work.
So it's almost like people are getting on board because of the Elsinore.
It is.
They're like,
that's not me.
They're geeking out over the bike.
The circumstance was pretty cool. It really was. It was pretty cool. There's a lot of people jumping on to the let's help clunker train. You know, I will ultimately be the beneficiary of it.
Yeah.
But it was about helping clunker, and Steve Litz did an amazing job providing me with tires, suspension work, anything that was chassis related. Steve took care of that for me all year long, and I just can't say thank you enough to him. He's fantastic.
What other sponsors did you have on board?
Well, I think we should go back in the very beginning of time. Before clunker was even pieces, Charlie Wiggins of Fontana Boat and Auto is a local mechanic in my hometown of Bryson City, and he helps me with everything from fixing my cars to he would fix my lawnmower for him if I helped him to. He's a general mechanic of all. There's nothing Charlie can't fix.
Yeah.
And so when I brought clunker in for the first time in boxes, it was to Charlie's place where we replaced bearings and greased things and painted things and rebuilt things and manufactured parts that couldn't be fixed and those kind of things. So Charlie has just been, from day one, possibly the most important role in just getting clunker to be a motorcycle again. And long before Butch got involved or Max got involved, Charlie was already there with me, making sure that we could actually reassemble this bike and make something out of it. So again, I like to say we turned Shade Tree Mechanicing into a speed shop at Charlie's place, and we built clunker in that shop. So thank you, Charlie, for that.
Which sponsors did you pick up near the end of the season, or at least midway in?
Well, a few. I picked up Rocketship Racing in the middle of the season. Tim Borgfield, the owner of Rocketship Racing, and I have been friends.
So Tim Borgfield was racing against you,
yes,
and he sponsored you.
It gets better.
Is he hedging his bets? What's going on there?
Well, no. Tim Borgfield and I go back to 1993 racing pro jet skis together.
Oh, wow. That's a completely different genre.
Him and I have known each other forever. And so when I showed interest in vintage motocross, I knew Tim had been racing vintage many years prior to me. So I gave him a call up, and he says, heck yeah, you need to be on my team, but you got to be good before you can be on my team. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm any good or not, Tim, because I've never rode one of these things. He says, well, let's see where you stand in the middle of the year, and maybe we'll make you an offer, maybe we won't. Middle of the year, he made me an offer. So thank you, Tim Borgfield, for putting me on the Rocketship.
You had to beat him a few times. Huh?
Well, I don't like to say it like that, but let's just say I earned Timmy's respect.
Okay.
Yeah. But then there's McCaffer Fabrication, came on board late in the year. They make bike stands. Well, he doesn't make bike stands. He makes bike stands for vintage bikes, and that may not seem important until you realize vintage bikes can't just sit on a normal, typical modern day bike stand. They have exhaust pipes underneath them. The frames are shaped different. So he custom manufactured clunker a stand just for him to work.
It's in here right now,
it's on it as we speak. And so Gordon, his first name, Gordon McCaffer, he did not know me yet, and he didn't know anything, but he had known that I had been borrowing one of his stands from another customer of his, and she had made the point to him that, hey, you need to take a look at Jerry. He's using my stand. He's traveling around the world, and he's doing this with the motocross thing on the vintage bike, and you might be interested in selling him a stand. Well, him selling me a stand turned into him sponsoring me multiple stands, and now really happy to have his efforts on board. I have no doubt that Gordon would be one of those guys who I could also use to manufacture unobtainable parts. His shop in New York, by the way, is perfectly capable of building frames and components and things that you just can't buy anymore. So, Gordon McCaffer, I thank you a lot. Thank you so much for your help. Right now it stands, but I'm sure it's going to escalate to more.
I'm looking at your poster behind you here, and I see you've got CorMoto on the poster. Who are they, and what have they done for you?
CorMoto. CorMoto is a graphics company that makes graphics kits, number plates, the numbers that you see on clunker. They manufacture all that for modern day motocross bikes. And my friend who owns CorMoto is named Matt Myers, And Matt Myers raced hare scrambles with me all the way back in the earliest days. And
With the NCHSA?
absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Matt and I raced the same class in the 200A class, and he's a super fantastic racer. And his brother, Kevin, who is also a super fantastic hare scrambler, decided to start a graphics company not too terribly many years ago. And he's done all of my modern bikes, all of Ryder's modern bikes. And so the day came, I called Matt and I said, hey, I've got a bike I need some graphics for, but it's not going to be in your system. It's too old to have templates, so you have to custom make them for me. He says, no problem. What is it? And I told him. He goes, oh my gosh, that's like the coolest thing ever. He says, but you're going to need to send me the parts so I can draft them up and graph them and do whatever. So I send him all the parts off CLUNKER, and I get back the number plate panels. And, my number's number 201 in the race season. But if you can, the bike currently has number 1 plates on it.
Because you're the champion.
That is true. But what makes the story very good about CorMoto and Matt Myers was he sent me a package to the final race of the year. He had sent me this package. He says, don't open the package unless you win because you'll be pissed.
Nice.
If you don't. Okay. And so I win the national championship, right? And so I rip open the package, and there's these panels with the number 1 plate on it. And it says,
right there.
Yeah, on the front panel, it says something like 2022 AHRMA national champion on it.
Does,
The
that's
big
exactly
number
what it
1
says.
plate,
Yeah.
And so thank you, Matt Myers, for such a wonderful gift and wonderful experience just knowing CorMoto for so many years.
But what's crazy about that is now the bike is your trophy. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, it's fair to say this.
Really neat.
Yeah, this bike will go on the wall.
Never mind the plaque, but the bike itself is the trophy.
It is the number 1 plate. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, I want to say thank you to, I don't know if I call it my biggest sponsor, but if it's not the most important sponsor, it's top 2 or 3. And that's JJ Rails Motocross Park in Dillsboro. Their contribution to my race program, didn't come in the way of tangible products. It come in the way of they loaned me their facility 24/7, 365, didn't even have to ask permission, basically gave me the keys to the gate and said, come train whenever you feel the need.
The convenience of them being so close to where you live, too.
Well, they would have been 2 hours away. I still would have gone because just the knowing that they were behind me the whole way, cheering me on the whole way. And so I can't speak highly enough of JJ Rails MX Park in Dillsboro, North Carolina. Look for them on Facebook and go ride when you can.
Yeah.